Welcome to the Chairman's Perspective Podcast. Chairman.
You're listening to the Chairman's Perspective. I am your host, Van Turner, here with my co-host, DC.
Yes, sir. I'm right here in the chair.
And we have another great show planned today. We have none other than Commissioner Michael Whaley, who is the Commissioner for District 5, and he's visiting with us here on the Chairman's Perspective. So, DC, hold on, sir. We'll be right back with the Chairman's Perspective, powered by the KUDZUKIAN Network.
Yes, sir.
The Chairman's Perspective on the KUDZUKIAN Network.
Keeping it real, right, and funky.
Is this an opportunity that we can seize and express interest from the governor and the state to act on behalf of young people in Shelby County? There are stories that we don't want to tell because they will piss some folks off, make some folk mad.
Funky politics on the KUDZUKIAN Network.
KUDZUKIAN! The Chairman's Perspective on the KUDZUKIAN Network.
We're back with another great episode of the Chairman's Perspective right here on the KUDZUKIAN Network. I am DC, sitting here along with the host, the one and only, the hostess of the mostest. Mr. Chairman, how are you, sir?
Doing very well, sir.
Van Turner Jr. I think you said Van Davis Turner Jr. one time, didn't you?
Yeah, that's the middle name.
Your his whole government name is what they say. But anyway, and on today's show, we've got none other than Commissioner Michael Whaley, who represents District 5 right here in Shelby County, Tennessee. Welcome to the Chairman's Perspective there, Commissioner Whaley. How are you, sir?
Thank you. Very well. It's very good to be here today.
Man, I tell you, we're going to have fun today. We're going to have some fun today, right, Commissioner?
That's right.
Oh,
Mr. Chairman? All right, here we go. You got it, Mr. Chairman.
So, Commissioner, you are one of the newest members on the Shelby County Board of Commissioners. And the key question that we have to ask you right now.
Drum roll.
Are you having fun yet?
Well, I don't know, Chairman. You tell me. You get to see me all the time. No, it's a lot of fun. And, I think have learned a lot in a short period of time. And I think it's just a lot of really good opportunity to make a difference. But, I'm certainly having a lot of fun. And I think our colleagues are too.
Well, Commissioner, tell us, how did you start right here in the Memphis community? How did you start your public service, and have you been a part of this or working up toward this particular level for some time?
So I actually grew up in Dallas, and so I moved to Memphis.
Dallas, Tennessee, Dallas, Mississippi,
Dallas, Texas.
Oh, the Dallas,
home of the Cowboys.
Oh. Show's over.
So I know that might upset some folks.
Yeah, Titans here, folks. We're Titan fans.
Sure. Well, I've got no problem with the Titans.
I got
you. So I moved to Memphis about 13 years ago to be a teacher. And so that's what initially brought me here, and taught elementary school in Memphis City Schools at the time, and had the opportunity to then start my own school after that. And one thing led to another, and here I still am, and really have fallen in love with the Memphis community, and it's become really my new home.
Well, let me back up a little bit now. Wait a minute. You said you started as a teacher here in Memphis and Shelby County, and you started your own school. Where did you tell me it was White Station or something like that?
No, I taught at Get Well Elementary.
Oh, okay.
Well.
I'll go with
Get
that
Well
one.
Eagles.
Oh, they're Eagles now.
That's right.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And now you started your own school. What's the name of that school?
Memphis College Prep, which is a kindergarten through fifth grade school here. We were authorized by the Memphis City Schools, and now we're with Shelby County Schools, of course.
Oh, wow. So is that a charter or a da-da-da-da-da-da-da?
It is a charter. And to be honest with you, that wasn't something I always thought I would do. And,
wow.
When I was in my second year teaching, was sort of thinking about, what really was going to, I think, take it to the next level and what I really wanted to do. And, honestly, part of me I really loved teaching and wanted to stay in the school. But then there was this other part of me that really, really wanted to start an ice cream shop. And
tell me more.
And
tell me more.
I to sort of spoil the story, I didn't end up starting the ice cream shop.
No doubt.
But I think what it was just this desire to want to start something in Memphis, to be able to tap into, I think, that entrepreneurial atmosphere that we have here, and sort of in the right place, right time, came across this really unique opportunity to learn how to essentially start a high-performing school by visiting other schools across the country, by really learning from those that have done it before, and be able to put together the plan per se to be able to do that. So for me, it was a way to start something in the community I was growing to love, but also be able to stay involved in education, particularly in the area where we were investing in ensuring that every child, regardless of demographic, background, any other challenge, really to no fault of their own, that they were being provided with the highest quality public education. And really that's what led me to take that leap and decide to start the school.
You're listening to The Chairman's Perspective, powered by the KUDZUKIAN Network.
So, Commissioner Whaley, tell us a little bit about District 5.
So District 5 is, I have to say, I think the best district in the county.
I've heard that somewhere before, Mr. Chairman.
Right.
You probably hear that from every other person that comes on the show.
Every commissioner, the best district. No, seriously.
Well, District 5 is unique in that it encompasses a lot of, I think, really diverse neighborhoods. And it's something that I really identify with and really appreciate about the district. Essentially, it covers parts of East Memphis and Cordova, from Highland and Summer and Walnut Grove, all the way down to Germantown Parkway. And so you have really strong neighborhoods like Berclair, High Point Terrace, the Richland area, Cordova Club. So there's a good collection of neighborhoods that have their own identities. And I think together, a lot of different perspectives that honestly transcend politics or the political spectrum. It's really folks that care deeply about our county and really love the neighborhoods that they live in. And I'm proud to be able to represent them.
Go ahead. I'm sorry,
That's a great point, because prior to you, there was a Republican representative.
Yeah, I was going. You going the same way I was going.
Former Chair Heidi Schaefer, and now
that's right.
You switched it to a Democratic district, and so tell us a little bit about that. I mean, what was your strategy? That you don't see that a lot. A lot of times when we have these districts, they stay the same way forever.
Yeah,
and for years. Right. You're absolutely right, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. Well, and you're right. And a lot of people told me that it wouldn't be possible, that it's just too hard to do it, and discouraged me early on. But, as someone who hasn't been really involved in politics before, I saw it as, if I'm able to connect with my neighbors and my friends in the district in a way that really relates to what they really are passionate about and care about on a daily basis, that political party is not the most important thing to them. And so my belief was that even if someone might decide to vote Democrat or vote Republican, that if I was able to really, I think, speak to the things that they care about, to truly represent them, that mattered more to them, especially on a local level, than any political party. And so I was fortunate enough to be able to get the support of not just Democrats in the district, but many Republicans as well, that really thought it was a good opportunity for us to start putting community first, to start investing in things like the quality of our schools, the vibrancy of our neighborhoods, and the things that at the end of the day, when you go home to dinner, are the things that you really talk about, right? No one's really debating these hot button social issues that often you think a lot about, that they really want to talk about the stuff that impacts them every day of their life.
Now, come on, Commissioner. Well, you sure it wasn't a baby face now? Because I'm sitting here looking. If our listeners could see this face here, folks, every grandma in that particular district, because now, come on now, we call it the East Memphis corridor, right, Mr. Chairman?
Right.
Come on now, we know with the age. I mean, you literally had to come across to a lot of these folks. Says, hey, you're a kid. Get out of the way. You don't know what you're doing, right? I'm sure you heard a lot of that on the trail, right?
Yeah, sure. And I think you've got it's both a positive and a negative, right?
Sure,
I think there
it could be both. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of people that were excited about some fresh faces and younger folks that were running for office. I think often, you see the kind of same folks running for the same offices over and over and over again. And certainly I think experience like that is important. But at the same time, I think it's just as important to have younger voices at the table
that's right.
That can represent different perspectives. And so that was on one hand. But to your point, there's also you've got to make sure you know your stuff, right? And so that was something that I made sure to really understand what people cared about, what some of the issues were that we were facing, and be as knowledgeable as I could about any of those policy opportunities.
Wow.
This is great. We're going to be right back with more on the Chairman's Perspective, here with Commissioner Michael Whaley, who represents District 5.
The Chairman's Perspective on the KUDZUKIAN Network.
Jazz, America's own original musical art form. When did it start? Who were and are some of the major players? How do you distinguish what kind of jazz you're listening to? We talk about the great and lesser-known artists, songs and tunes, the instruments, and the social impact jazz has had on world culture since its beginning at the start of the 20th century.
Riffin' on jazz on the KUDZUKIAN Network.
KUDZUKIAN! The Chairman's Perspective on the KUDZUKIAN Network.
We're back here on the Chairman's Perspective, along with my co-host, DC. And our guest today is Commissioner Michael Whaley, who represents District 5. And we've just talked about his service on the county commission. Now, Commissioner, we want to talk about your service in the private sector. And so you come from the education field. You sort of kind of got into it a little bit more. You got into it a little bit in the past about how you got involved and started your own school. Give us a little bit more. You're now the chair of education.
Yes, sir.
For the county commission.
Yes, sir.
What is your vision for the education chairmanship of the commission? Where are we headed under your chairmanship for education?
Well, one of the things that I'm excited about is the opportunity for the county to take a bigger leadership role when it comes to education in Shelby County. And if you look at the fact that we are the local funding body for Shelby County schools, as well as funding the 6 municipal school districts, we also invest in facilities and capital improvements. That I think really there is an opportunity and an expectation that we are more engaged and involved in that process, because at the end of the day, the success of our schools really determines the success of our county. And so I think it's incumbent upon us to, one, learn more about what are the initiatives that are working, what's not working, and be better partners, with the school boards and respective leaders of the different school districts. And so I think that in turn will allow us to find unique ways to make some really smart strategic investments in educational programs that can help move outcomes for kids, that can help address systemic poverty, that can address some of the inequities that we see, can address some of the, quite frankly, underperformance that we see in many of our schools. And so I think there is a big opportunity for us on the commission to play a role in paving a stronger future for us.
As I look at the budget book, we give about $400 million plus to education.
Yeah, that's right.
It's our largest line item
by far
in the county budget. And so the school board just last evening appointed Dr. Joris Ray as a permanent superintendent. So give us your quick take on it. I mean, we don't have to get in the weeds. They decided against the national search, went with Dr. Ray. What's your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, so I'll say that the largest responsibility that is given to the local boards of education is to select their superintendent and evaluate their superintendent. And so that's something that I'm very sensitive to and want to make sure that they need to make the decision that's best for them. And they made the decision to select Dr. Ray as their permanent superintendent. And so I'm excited to see what he can do. And I think, it's important that, we support, that decision, that we support Dr. Ray. And because at the end of the day, we all want the same things. We all want kids to be successful. And so, I think it's a good opportunity to get to work.
Now, something I want to share with our listeners: you have a certain hobby.
Yes, yeah. I think I know where you're going with this.
It's a good hobby. Tell us about your hobby that takes you all around the world.
Yeah,
in particular, you go to France a lot. So what is that particular hobby?
I don't know when I first kind of picked this up, but the hobby you're referring to is wine.
Yes, sir.
That I am.
Vino.
Is that the making of it or the drinking of it?
That is the whole product. That is both the viniculture and viticulture.
So do you need an assistant? Would it be assistant viticulture? Is that what that is?
Yeah, well, I could. So I actually am studying through the Court of Master Sommeliers to be able to learn more about the wine, the theory of wine, the service of wine, how to blind taste different wines. And you begin to learn that there's so many different elements that a bottle of wine is evolving with age, and that all the things that went into it, for me, have been very fascinating. So yes, it's taken me around the world to see some of the best wine producing regions in the world, many of which are here in the United States, and which we have wineries here in Tennessee. In fact, every state in America has at least one winery. Oh, wow. Which is often something people don't know.
I used to have a winery in my backyard, but I think somebody took it down.
I used to have one in college, too.
Yeah, right.
I'm not so sure.
Same.
I don't know if they would call me a sommelier, though. They call me a lot of other stuff, but they didn't call me a sommelier.
Does Mad Dog 2020 count? No.
You're listening to the Chairman's Perspective, powered by the KUDZUKIAN Network. Commissioner, I want to come back around to the education space. And just recently, the General Assembly, for lack of a better reason, I don't know, but they agreed to go ahead and fund the governor's request on setting up two special, really to target two special districts, Shelby County and Metro Davidson, right, with all of this money for vouchers.
Yes.
Why weren't we a part of that conversation in terms of, is this good for Shelby County schools?
Yeah. Well, so this is as you know, this is a topic that's been brought up for a long time, sure, and has been debated over and over again. I mean, this year's bill was a little different in the previous iterations. The commission, as you know, took a position against the voucher legislation, and we have gone up
unanimously, I think, too, right?
Well, and I'm not, I think so. But so we and I had a chance to go up and speak to the Senate Finance Committee recently when it was being debated, and the point I made, because I come to it as someone that certainly understands the importance of school choice and the fact that like every child should have the opportunity to go to a great school, right? Like that's a fundamental right in my opinion. Sure. And so I understand the where it is coming from. The intent, I think, is to be able to ensure that there's many options for kids. But the point I made was that we are in a place now where we have a whole number of different options that we didn't used to have 10 years ago in the public space, right? We have more charter schools. We have the municipal school districts. Yes. We have innovation zone schools. Yes. We have the achievement school district. And so there currently exist a lot of different options that families are able to choose from. And that, my look at it and what I sort of said to the Finance Committee is that this is a lot of money. This is hundreds of millions of dollars that we are essentially, I think, diluting when we spread it out too thin, which would be the case with ESAs when you can go to a whole number of schools. Where I think that if we took that additional funds and concentrated it on the choices that we already have in the public space, that we can get to a place where we can really make those even stronger. And if we make those even stronger, you create more good options for kids, and you're able to give families what they really want, which is a great school for their child. And if you look at one of the other challenges we have, and this is something we've talked about in different domains, is transportation. So are kids able to get to these options that we have? And in many cases, they can't. So we have great choices. We have choices now, yes, but for some families, that choice they want to go to is across the county. And without transportation, it's hard for them to get there. And so that's one of the challenges. So imagine if we put $300 million into that. I think you'd help ensure that kids are getting to the schools they want to get to.
Wow. That's great. Well, let's put a pin in it right there. You're listening to The Chairman's Perspective, powered by the KUDZUKIAN Network, and we'll be right back.
Chairman. The Chairman's Perspective on the KUDZUKIAN Network.
The off-year electorate, the midterm electorates, are older, less diverse, more conservative. You have two electorates fighting for the future of this country. And what I'd say to your viewers and people listening in is, you know what? You got to stop that older, less diverse electorate from funking around with your future.
Funking up your airwaves and jamming the good information in your ear. Once again, it's Funky Politics.
Funky Politics.
We're back with the Chairman's Perspective. I am Van Turner here with DC.
Yes, sir. I'm here.
And we have none other than Commissioner Michael Whaley, Commissioner for District 5, here with us today. And we've been talking about District 5, but you had a burning question, didn't you, DC?
I did. I got a burning question for both of you all. How do we in Memphis and Shelby County, how do we drive or recruit or push more of our young black males into a college setting? I don't think there's any doubt that with a college education, they do better down the road in terms of numbers, right?
Sure.
How do we do
absolutely.
that?
No, I mean, I think it's a really important question and something that we've really got to figure out because, like you mentioned, the ability to attain a college degree or post-secondary degree is really important to everything, right? I mean, to your future earnings, to poverty, to a lot of things. And so, I look at this kind of college attainment challenge, particularly for African-American men, to be something that's got to start as soon as they get to school. And often what happens, and what I saw as an elementary educator and as a leader of an elementary school, is that many students and in our student population was at the time I was leading it 98% African American, and one of the challenges that you often see is that students are coming in and there's issues that are manifesting themselves like behavior challenges, right? And so you have, you might have a student get really frustrated, and that frustration manifests itself in throwing a chair across the room, right? And so the tools that we had at the time were, well, you've got to send them out, you've got to send them home, suspend them, and certainly I think I understand that because you want to create a structured environment. But I think for a young student, what happens is that they start to internalize that as like they are bad for some reason, like they are not good and they're less of a person. And that, unfortunately, lowers the expectation away from what we know, which is that every child, regardless of demographic, can get to college. But it's all about like truly understanding what is going on. And one of those things that's going on and has been going on and continues to go on is our adverse childhood experiences and childhood trauma. Mm-hmm. And so we have got to do a better job as educators really understanding that and investing in trauma training, trauma-informed social workers, counselors, teachers, so that we can really address the root of a lot of these challenges and not do the Band-Aid solutions, which are suspensions and expulsions. Because if you don't have those other tools available, that's all you've got. And that, unfortunately, compounds over time, where a student might start to become behind academically. And by the time they get to high school looking to go to college, a lot of these challenges have built up over time, and it makes it that much harder for them to get into college. And if they do get in, college persistence is another challenge that we've got to address. Keeping them there.
You're listening to the Chairman's Perspective, powered by the KUDZUKIAN Network.
Yeah, I think that, just today I was at Doubletree Elementary School, and you may or may not know, I'm sure you know, Commissioner Whaley, it's a Montessori school.
Yep.
So it's an open setting. And so as I was leaving from the career day, one of the firefighters who was there asked me did I think that this was effective, because it appeared that because there were open classrooms, the young people's attention can never be focused because you got all these things going around. And I said, well, it worked out well because it actually teaches discipline and it actually teaches creativity. And you have this free time where the student is learning, experiencing, and doing things on their own. You're sort of learning on your own. You're teaching yourself how to learn. So I thought that it was a great experience for me. And I probably, would not be where I am today had it not been for Doubletree Montessori. And it was a new theme back in the 80s.
Sure was.
Because I got to Doubletree in 1980. And so, like you, Commissioner Whaley, I think the focus has to be elementary school. Because if you have a strong foundation, the junior high and the high school, that's important. But without that foundation, the love of education, the ability to learn on your own, the ability to discipline yourself and pay attention, by the time you get to middle and high school, it's almost too late. So I know that you were an elementary school educator, and that's where I think the focus needs to be. I mean, if I had the authority, I would
the magic wand, right?
I would dump everything into that elementary school education. K through 5th grade, K through 6th grade is where it happens, because when the child does not stay on level, when the child cannot read by 4th or 5th grade, we see the trouble. And it's hard to correct it by middle and high school. So I commend you on your work in education, but in particular, I really appreciate your focus on elementary education. I think that's the key.
Yeah, for both of y'all. And here's another one a lot of our listeners out there want to know. In terms of the General Assembly, it's wrapped up now. If you had to grade how Shelby County did itself with respect to legislation, and Commissioner Whaley, I'll let you go first, and of course I'd like to end up with the chairman's take on this. Grade of A to F. F being, of course, the worst, and A being the best. How do you think we fared as a county? in this General Assembly. I think, the 111th or something like that, I believe it was.
Yeah.
How do you think we fared?
So I would
be generous.
Yeah. Okay. If I'm going to be
grade
generous,
up, grade up.
If I'm going to be generous, maybe I say C minus.
C minus.
A couple. Certainly, a lot of bills get passed, and so there's a lot of things that are small that really haven't bubbled up yet. But I think there have been some good things that I think have been passed, and one of those is around sort of online gaming revenue that I think will help us invest in education, be able to do more there, which I think is a good thing, and also make us more competitive relative to other states that we border here. But going back to your point about the school vouchers and the education savings accounts issue, one of the I think unfortunate pieces about how that happened was that the majority of the legislators who represented Shelby County, Davidson County, where this legislation applies to, were not in favor of it.
Yeah.
And, I think I would love us to get to a place where, the General Assembly is really leaning on the will of their local governments. And, especially given that many of them are strong proponents of local control.
That's right.
Right. I mean, just as a principle. And so I certainly commend them for that. But this was a case where it felt like maybe local control wasn't what won the day on that. And so I'd like us to get to a place, and I think we can get there, and part of that is just in building positive relationships, not necessarily being as combative, but I think we need to get to a place where we're really deferring and leaning on those that are closest to the work to get their expertise and have them weigh in on some of these state level issues that do affect local municipalities.
C minus, Mr. Chairman. I think he said C minus.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, you're next. What's your opinion?
I mean, that's
is that being generous?
No, yeah. I mean, we had a tough time. The vouchers is an issue. We'll continue to work through that issue. They're looking at perhaps litigation, so we'll just have to see what happens.
Yeah.
We'll have to see what happens.
But come on, ascribe a grade.
Well, I won't grade them now. Because I'm going to wait.
Incomplete. We're going to give him an I. Incomplete. That's what is that what you said, Mr.
I'm going to give him an I.
You'll give him an I?
Because if the litigation knocks out the vouchers, then,
true.
It's not as bad as we think. But I think it's a real issue. And the fact that it only applies to Memphis and Nashville, it's just crazy. If it's good enough for Memphis and Nashville, why is it not good enough for the rest of the state? So, that's just an issue for me.
What do you think about Grundy County, Claiborne County, Decatur County, all those counties in between? They do have some low-performing schools, Mr. Jim.
Absolutely. Chattanooga, Knoxville.
That's right.
And so they're left out. Yeah. So, I mean, I just think it's not good, and hopefully we can get a better resolution, and we'll continue to work towards that effort.
Well, I think we ought to get out of here. What do you think? Let's get on our heels and get out of here.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Commissioner Whaley, you've been wonderful, sir. We appreciate you being here. The chairman, of course, this is the host of this show right here, right? Yeah. Sometimes I have to put him on his heels, so ask him some questions here because his listeners want to know exactly what he thinks. It's the chairman's perspective is what it is, right? Yeah. And so knowing what he thinks and what you all think is it works wonders. And the listeners are here with us, and they'd like to get this knowledge from you all, right?
That's Chairman? Right. That's right. And so DC. Commissioner Whaley, it's been a good one. We'd love to have you back sometime. And we'll be right back on the Chairman's Perspective here on the KUDZUKIAN Network.
The Chairman's Perspective Podcast on the KUDZUKIAN Network.
Hey, I'm your host, Cynthia Daniels.
And I'm your co-host, Williams Brack. And Grindset takes a deep dive into the mentality of the entrepreneur in Memphis.
This show unpacks the entrepreneurial journey. What's your Grindset?
So make sure to check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, or your favorite podcast provider.
Grindset on the KUDZUKIAN Network.
KUDZUKIAN! Well, we've had a great show. We've had Commissioner Michael Whaley give us the biz as it relates to education here in Shelby County.
He did do that. Now, Mr. Chairman, he did do that. He
started out as an elementary school educator, started his own school, and then he went on to become commissioner for District 5, and he turned the district from a Republican district to a Democratic district.
And that's pretty tough right there by itself in Shelby County. That's pretty tough.
That's very tough. He gave us a wonderful take on vouchers. He actually went up and he spoke to the Senate.
Yeah, that's right.
His first year as a commissioner, and he's speaking to the Senate.
Right here in our state legislature. That's right. And, and I think what happens is when you get people like him who are energetic, they're young, and you take a district like 5, I mean, you talking about, man, I would say the age demographic is pretty much up there, right? It's I bet it mirrors that Whitehaven district.
That's right.
Dr. Ford's district, but just with the flip of the races, right?
Right.
When you think about something like that. Man,
right.
Amazing. He was amazing today. I don't know, Ms. Shannon, what do you think?
No, he was great. He gave us all his fresh perspectives. I think he handled the issue of Dr. Joris Ray's appointment.
Yeah.
As the superintendent.
And we all congratulate Dr.
We all congratulate him. We're looking forward to working with him on the budget. And so I think we've had a great show. Hopefully the listeners have appreciated hearing from Commissioner Whaley. And we'll see you next week on The Chairman's Perspective, powered by the KUDZUKIAN Network.
The Chairman's Perspective Podcast. Executive producer, Shelby County Commission's Van Turner. Hosted by Chairman Van Turner Jr. and Darrell DC Catron. Recorded at KUDZUKIAN Studios. Directed, produced, and distributed by KUDZUKIAN.